the season of Advent. And today we heard the famous narrative on the visitation of Mary. That's what we will reflect first, and there is something beautiful we can learn here. Nativity is one of the joyful mysteries of the Rosary, and so we always get back to that incident. And also today, finally, we will go into the last person of Advent. And as you know, Advent started with the Immaculate Conception of Mary, and then John the Baptist. There is another person that would complete the message of Advent in preparation for the birth of Jesus. We will reflect on that person today. So we go back to the narrative of the visitation. The situation was this. Mary is coming from Nazareth, which is north of Jerusalem. And then she has to travel to the mountains of Judah, and it's a hill country, and the road was rugged, and it is a long trip. She was pregnant, and she was, the situation is difficult and very risky and dangerous journey of a pregnant woman climbing the mountains and the hills of Judah, and to serve and to help Elizabeth. Here we will learn the biblical meaning and the real meaning of mission and ministry in the example of Mary. She was herself burdened with all the concerns and the difficulties of a pregnant woman. In a few months will be expecting the birth of her child. But that did not stop her from going, to do mission, to do something good. So this is where we will learn the meaning of mission, that we go out and bring Jesus to those who have to hear him. That's what Mary was doing. He was bringing Jesus. Second mission, there are many people, I heard this a lot, there are many people who want to do good things. They want to do some charity, they want to do some ministry work, but there is always a but, there's always a reason, and so postponing and postponing. That is not, the lesson here from Mary is that there is no such a thing as a perfect time to do something good. There's no such a thing as a perfect time. The perfect time is now. There is no futurizing. If we keep on postponing and postponing, we will never do it. Mary went. She did not wait for a comfortable moment, or she didn't even say, oh, I have to do this first and then later I will help. No, she went. You have to do it now. And that is a lesson that we can learn. If we keep on postponing and you end up with nothing, because there is no such a perfect time to do something good. Even in our construction project, the engineers were telling me, Father, if you postpone this, you will spend more money. The longer you postpone, you will end up getting more burden. So that's a beautiful lesson in understanding the meaning of mission and ministry. There's no such a thing as perfect time. The perfect time is now. If you want to do something good, do it now. Second, we will look at the person of Saint Joseph. He fills and completes our Advent preparation. There are just some insights we can get from the person of Saint Joseph in our Advent preparation. There is really no long paragraph or description about this person because Saint Joseph, like Mary, are only significant because of their relationship with Jesus. But if you're looking for a word that says it all in the gospel, it is the word righteous. It says Joseph is a righteous man. He always knows how to do right. And he is not losing his cool. He is always composed and always thinking and doing what is right. That is the description of a righteous person. The perfect example of this was after the marriage, after the betrothal. He was already married to Mary, and he brought Mary home because they're already married. And he found out that Mary was already pregnant, and the baby was not his. Can you imagine the anger and the frustration and the temper, the burden of knowing that you were betrayed by your wife before you were married, and the baby is not his. You guys, can you picture that yourselves? I mean, the guys, you get married and you find out your wife is already pregnant and the baby is not yours. I will kill. That's a joke. Don't quote me on that. But that's an insult to the man. Can you imagine the frustration and the pain of the man? But here, righteous. He decided to settle the problem quietly. He will just send Mary away quietly. Because if the city hall knows this, if the government knows this, they will arrest Mary and will have her stoned to death in the square, because that is the punishment for adultery during their time. So he just wanted to settle this problem quietly, and he will just send Mary away. The lesson here is conflict, settling conflict. Joseph is teaching us how to settle conflict. Just solve the problem quietly. Don't make a lot of fuss. There's no sense in making a big noise out of it. His purpose is not to get even, but he was concerned about the salvation of Mary. And so he didn't want her to be harmed. He was concerned about her welfare. She was in a very dangerous situation, which is a crime. And he just wanted to settle the problem quietly. That's the righteous man. That's Joseph. That night, he had a dream, and another virtue of Joseph, that he obeyed the message of the angel. Joseph was an obedient man, and he's a model of obedience. And it is important that we understand the depth and power of this virtue, because he has to teach this to Jesus. Jesus learned obedience from Joseph. As you know, if you look at the gospel, it may become very subtle, but Jesus had issues with obedience to the Father. He was always complaining, always asking for reconsideration. Joseph taught him to obey. Now, the perfect example of this was when Joseph was 12, or when Jesus was 12, and they went to the Passover in Jerusalem, and they were already on their way back because their provisions are running out, and they have to get to the caravan to go back. It's a long journey, and the boy was not with them. And they have to go back in the middle of the way to look for Jesus. 12-year-old boy who got lost in a big city. And they looked around for him, and they found him in the temple, conversing with the leaders of the temple. And Joseph approached him and said, "Why did you do this to us? We were so worried. And we have to come back here for you. Why did you not tell us? Why did you do this?" And the answer of a typical 12-year-old boy is really strong. You know, when he said, "I am doing my Father's business." That line is very, very strong. It means it is none of your business. Second, you are not my father. From a 12-year-old. That is a strong line. But you know, Joseph said, "No, go home with us." And Jesus obeyed. "I am doing my Father's business. This is my mission." And Joseph said, "You're too young for that. You don't have driver's license yet. Get back home." The boy obeyed. God obeyed. That was a lesson that Joseph taught Jesus. There are other 3 instances in the gospel where Jesus was struggling with obedience. The first one was in Mount Tabor after the temple incident, and the authorities were looking for them to be arrested because they were creating trouble. And so they have to get out of Jerusalem and go 25 miles south of Jerusalem to hide. They were hiding there in the hills. And Jesus was frustrated, kind of blaming himself. He was so depressed, hiding like a coward. And then blaming, why is this thing happening? What did I do wrong? And then at the height of his depression and fear, the cloud appeared in the morning, and the Father appeared to him, telling him, "Do your mission, fulfill my will." And then Jesus accepted it, and he was transfigured. He finally understood the mission that the Father gave him. He was transfigured. It was a kind of anticipation of the glory of the resurrection. And then he decided, let's get out of here and we'll go down and face my enemies. That was Passion Sunday, when he entered Jerusalem. Only after embracing and obeying the will of the Father. The second time, in Gethsemane, before the arrest, when the soldiers were already coming and approaching, and he was praying for the last time, begging the Father, "Could you please postpone this? Get this thing done later. I cannot do it now." And then he bowed his head and said, "No, not my will, your will." Second time, he made arrangements with the Father. Third, in the cross, when he was about to die, he was shouting and screaming, complaining, "Father, Father, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, why did you leave me? Why did you allow this to me? Why have you forgotten me?" That was still Jesus, the final moment on the cross. But then he bowed his head, "Let your will, it is finished." He embraced the will, and then he died. 3 times. Obedience. Who taught Jesus this? Joseph taught him how to obey, like a good father. Joseph taught Jesus the power of obedience. And he taught Jesus when he was small. He taught Jesus to work. He taught Jesus structure, because that's what work is. They have a carpentry shop, and they made tables and chairs and furnitures. He told Jesus to report there and help. He taught Jesus schedule, structure, responsibility, and pride with your accomplishments. Be able to produce something. He knew Jesus was God, but Joseph taught them to Jesus. And that's how Jesus fulfilled his mission. Lessons from a good and righteous father was Joseph.